as well. Okay, I'm going to shut all of the noises off because now I have noises going off that I don't want. There we go. All right, let us get started. So we are here today to talk about re-energizing your outreach and awareness activities. If you're not familiar with Iowa CASA, I know I'm familiar with lots of you on this call, but if you're not familiar, just so that you know what we do, we are the statewide entity. We represent 22 victim service programs that exist all across the state. And we really try to be that bridge between victim advocates, statewide policymakers, and federal responses to sexual harassment, abuse, and assault. We just have several staff that came back that were in DC doing some legislative advocacy work and just got back yesterday. And our mission is to end sexual violence and improve support that's available for survivors of sexual harassment, abuse, and assault. So that's what we do. Okay. And these are the goals of the training. All right. In the next 90 minutes, hopefully you're going to get some new engagement strategies that you can use at tabling or outreach events. You're going to be able to explain how you might evaluate the impact of those strategies. And you're going to be able to describe how the strategies can be modified for different outreach audiences. Feels like a little bit of a heavy lift, but I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to get through it today. All right, but first, I just wanted to check in with you all because language is weird. And you can use the chat or you can unmute, but is it cool if, like, when I go to an event and we pay an exhibitor fee and we get the fancy tablecloth and we put the materials out, I call that tabling. That's what I was kind of taught as I was coming up in this work. Like that's, oh, I'm going to go table at this event. Is that the same word that you all use, or do you use a different word when you're doing that, like going out into the community with your tablecloth and your stuff? Just go ahead and type in the chat for me or unmute if you want to. I just want to know what word you use when you do that. All right, Shiloh calls it tabling as well. Tabling. All right. Cool. Tabling. Beautiful. Okay, good. All right, that's the word I'm going to use. And so if I just want to make sure we're all on the same page when I use that word, because it's all a little bit different. Cool. That was easy. Fast and easy. Okay. All right. So I want to hear a little bit more about the work that you do. And to do that, we're going to use something called Mentimeter. So Alex is going to drop a link in the chat. You also can go to the website, or if you're fancy and you want to use a QR code with your phone, you can use your phone to click that QR code. And we're just going to go through like 4 questions and see where you all are at. All right. All right. And the first question is this one. How much of your position involves doing some outreach or some tabling? So less than 25%, 25 to 50%, 50 to 75%, or more than 75%. Let's give folks a minute or two to answer that question. And I'm going to actually go ahead and close my door here in the hallway because somebody just came in. So I'll be right back. All right. So far, we're looking like we're pretty evenly spread with some more folks answering. Looking at how many people we've got on the call. All right. We've got a couple people joining. All right. If you're just joining us, we're doing a little bit of a poll. We've got 4 questions to see where folks are at around training. So we've got that link in the chat. Alex just put it back in for you. You can click that, or you can actually clicking that's probably going to be the best option right now. Good. All right. I'm going to move on to the next question. I see that we're pretty well evenly spread out. Okay, let's try the next question. All right. And the next question is, what are some of your goals when you do an outreach or a tabling event? What are you hoping to accomplish? And as you type it in, that'll start to pop up on our screen so we can see where folks are. So I see spreading awareness of services, letting the community know about agency and services, awareness, resources. All right. Make sure that people who are or who might know someone who needs services know what's available to them. So a lot of awareness, see some connecting with other agencies. That's always one of my big goals too. We're going to talk about that. Starting conversations about body safety and education. Oops. Hang on. There we go. Trying to see what's further on down the bottom there. All right. Educate people in the community about the resources the agency has to offer, future referrals, absolutely. Just going through some of these this way. Beautiful. All right. All right. I think we got to see all of them. Fantastic. All right. Let's head to the third question. Okay. Who are you talking to when you're doing outreach tabling events? So be as specific as you can. So for example, one of the conferences that Alex and I often table at a lot is the Iowa School Counselors Association. So school counselors would be one of ours. Who is it that you all are talking to? And I think this one will give you 3 different options. You can add as many as you want. And this one's going to give us a word cloud. So the bigger the word is, the more people said that. See it moving around. All right, we've got lots of different answers. And those blue ones are hard to see. So I'm going to read those ones first. Oh, there it moves again. All right, adolescent, survivors, the general public, different agencies, women, students.
Elderly, and the blue ones.
Yep, thank you. Health fairs at schools, community members.
At the DV organizations.
Yeah, so lots and lots of different entities that we're reaching out to. All right, last question. Last question. Okay, so this is an agree or disagree. We've still got social service providers hanging on there. I'm not sure what that is, but don't worry about that. We've got 3 different statements. Do you agree or disagree or somewhere in the middle with these statements? And you can just slide and drag that little slider and we'll see where folks are. This is my favorite Mentimeter way to ask a question. I like to watch these slider bars go up and down. They're still moving, so we'll give it a minute for everybody to answer. All right, they seem stable. All right, I think they're stable. So it looks like for most of us, we are, yes, we basically agree that we're bringing the same materials each time that we table. We seem to be pretty in the middle of if we have a way to keep track of how many people you talk to at an event. And we're close on the disagree end about if we schedule time for follow-up after the event is over. So good, that gives me a good sense of where we are, and hopefully the next time that you would answer these questions, you might answer them a little bit differently. All right, thank you guys for taking time to share that with us. That's really, really helpful. Okay, let's tackle this big question first, right? So what do we want to get out of tabling? All right, so when we get a request to do an outreach event or to table, Right? These are the things that we start to think about, right? So who primarily is going to come to this event? Is it professionals? Right? And if they are professionals, what kind of professionals? Am I speaking to medical folks, first responders, educators, the general community, right? I saw a lot of you said families, right? So parents, caregivers, are there going to be children at this event? What specific subsets of communities, right? Are there cultural specific communities, linguistically, language? Do we have to think about language access in the materials that we're bringing? Am I reaching out specifically to disability communities, folks from other identities? Or is this just an event for general community? All right. So when I think about what materials I'm going to bring, I'm already starting to think about, okay, what are all the materials that I have access to? And then of the people who are coming to this event, what do they actually need, right? Do they need our general Iowa CASA brochures? Are they needing stuff around legal services? Do I need to bring coloring pages because there's going to be children attending this event, right? So that's what I'm starting to think as I'm deciding what it is that I'm going to actually bring. Okay. And then I need to think about my program needs. So what's going on with us right now? So maybe it is that you have you've done some sort of formal needs assessment or even an informal needs assessment, and you've seen that there are some communities that you know would benefit from your services, but they're not coming to you, right? You're not seeing them in your doors or they're not calling your hotline. Like if that's true, then I need to think about not only what materials I need to bring that are going to appeal to that community that I'm not reaching right now, but I'm also going to think about where is it that I'm doing that tabling, right? Maybe some folks aren't calling me and I need to be calling them to say, do you have something that's happening in this community that I can be at? Because I really want to reach out to this particular subset of the community that I'm not seeing right now. Maybe you've got a new training or a new program that you want people to know about. Okay, so tabling events can be really good recruitment for events that you're holding. Right? But then you've got to have a material about it, and we'll talk that through and show you some examples. All right. Do you have some kind of goal around changing social norms or people's attitudes? Because if we do, then we're going to want to think about that as we're bringing in what materials we're going to bring, what activities we might do when we're doing one of those tabling events, right? Do you need some new board members? Do you need volunteers? Are you hiring staff, right? So those are some of the things that, again, just to kind of set the framework, those are the kind of things that I'm thinking about when I'm deciding where I'm going to table, who I want to connect with, and what I want to bring. Are there things that you all think of that I didn't mention already? And if so, type them in the chat. Did I get everything? That seems unlikely. Yeah, so I see Frank said sex trafficking survivors, right? So that's another audience that we've got, and different kinds of materials that we might need to bring and different kinds of places we might want to be. Absolutely. All right. If you think of anything else at any time, go ahead and unmute or pop them back in the chat, but I'm going to keep it moving. Okay. I didn't have another good word for this besides the vibes of the space. And so that's the word that I used. Yeah. Oh, I'm seeing some things come in the chat right now. Yeah, absolutely. So we have this. I see Rachel says, we have the conversation with people. How can I help a lot at events? So people coming up to you and saying, how can I help? Right. And so we want to make sure that we've got things at our table, things that we can hand to people that give them that takeaway. If it's an event that I've gone to before, what went well last time? Yeah, Ainsley, absolutely. And having things that are culturally and linguistically accessible, Frank. Yep. And we're going to talk about all of that. So great. I love to see this. What I meant when I was saying, like, I consider the vibes, right? Is this a serious space, a learning space, a support space, a fun space? So that's one of the things I think about. So I'll give you an example. We have a goal around working in disability communities, and we really wanted to know some information about the rate of sexual violence in disability communities in Iowa. We have national statistics, but we don't have much in Iowa. And there are several disability specific conferences that we had the opportunity to table at. And so initially we were starting to think, okay, well, can we do a survey? What might that look like? And then we went to the conference as attendees and we realized that it really was, at least most of the conferences we were at were designed to be kind of fun and learning spaces. And they weren't spaces that it felt like it was a good idea to talk to people about their experiences with sexual violence, right? That it was just not going to be the venue where people were going to expect to have to answer those questions or where people were going to feel comfortable to answer those questions. And so then we stepped back and we said, okay, what do we know about sexual violence? We know that healing from sexual violence is much more difficult when you don't have a supportive community around you. And so we asked questions like that instead. We still did a survey, but instead of asking around sexual violence, we asked things like, do you have at least 3 people in your life that you feel like support you and that you can talk to? We asked, do you feel like the people in your life respect your decisions and support your ability to make your own decisions, right? And so we changed the tenor of the questions that we asked based on the vibe of the space, right? And what we thought people were going to be comfortable answering, right? We've tabled before at music festivals. And so when we're tabling at something that's like a music festival, even though we're still going to talk about sexual violence, we've got to keep things a little bit lighter, right? And so we brought a big board and we said, write down your favorite kind of consensual love song, right? Or like what you like about that. And so we kept it on that level. And that doesn't mean that we didn't still have conversations about people's survivorship or still have conversations that were serious in tone, but we made sure that we matched the vibe of our space to the actual event that we were at. Right? And that goes into the next thing, right? Like how comfortable are they going to be talking about sexual violence? Okay. How many of you, just give me a yes or no in the chat, how many of you have put materials about sexual violence specifically or any kind of violence more broadly out on your table, and then people kind of peek at you and they give you the big wide berth of your table, right? They're stopping at every single table and then they see violence or sexual violence specifically, and then they go all the way around your table. Yes or no, has that happened to you? Yeah. Yeah. Right. And that's okay, right? Like we're all about consent and choice. We never want to force anybody to interact with us or like bait and switch them into our table. But I do want to think about, okay, is this a space where people are going to be comfortable or not? Because I'm going to put my table, I'm going to set up my table differently and I'm going to bring different things depending on that, right? That school counselors conference that I talked about earlier, that's one of the only conferences that we go to that people see sexual violence and are immediately like, yes, I have questions about that and I want to come talk to you. Right? That's why it's one of my favorite conferences to be at every year. Like shout out to the school counselors. But if I'm in a space where I think that's not going to be as accessible or approachable for people, I've got to look different. I've got to do some different things around my table. Right? The other thing I want to think about is, have the organizers planned anything to encourage interaction? Right. So some of the more successful conference experiences that we've had have been ones where the organizers have taken it upon themselves to do something to encourage interaction. So a lot of times it looks like a raffle, some kind of door prize, like a bingo card, right? Where they give the people who are attending the conference something, and you've got to go get a stamp or a sticker from all of the tables. And you've got to have a meaningful interaction, right? And so then we, as the people who are sitting on this side of the table, get to be like, oh, you can't just come take a Tootsie Roll off of my table, right? Like we have to have some kind of meaningful interaction for me to give you that stamp. And so then that encourages that interaction. It also tells me that if an organizer has done that, I need to be thinking about what is that meaningful interaction going to look like for somebody who's really uncomfortable talking about sexual violence. Because again, that is not ever my goal, is to make someone uncomfortable. My goal is to share information and awareness. And so I've got to think about how I can do that in a way that's going to be safe. Okay. All right. Let's take a trip through some resources, okay? And some of these resources will be things that you've seen before, and some of them may be things you haven't seen before. And we're gonna get into some websites and share some stuff, and then kind of at the end of this portion, I'm going to ask you all to share some resources that you have that I haven't presented. Okay, so just be prepared for that kind of interaction. Okay. So the first thing is internal program resources. So all of you work for organizations or volunteer for organizations that have some kind of stuff that we can put in people's hands, right? So this is just an example of some of the things that we've done at Iowa CASA, and you may have things that are similar to this, or you may have things that are different, okay? So the first, you don't need to be able to read. I know some of this print is small. You don't need to be able to read all of this, but the first flyer that's there is a flyer for this training, right? So if I was working, if I was going to a conference where I knew that people who did this kind of work were going to be, I might just print out this flyer and I would have it on my table so that when I was having that interaction, I could say, hey, I've got this really great training coming up. See if you can find it in your schedule to attend, and give them a flyer, right? This next one that has Ari's beautiful face on it, if you know Ari, this was something that we did during Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we wanted to really have conversation and dialogue with folks about their thoughts around sexual violence prevention, but we knew that that was maybe not going to be something they were comfortable just sharing verbally, or sharing, like very quickly after we asked them the question. And so we put this flyer together, right? That's got kind of an example of what Ari's thinking about when she's thinking about prevention. And then there's a QR code that people could go, and it goes to a Mentimeter. So just like the thing that we all did together, it goes to something just like that. But then people could share their thoughts, and then we have all of those as some data that we were able to collect about the community's real thoughts around sexual violence prevention. So that was something that we did that was an internal program material. And then the final one that's here was our Postcards for Survivors campaign, which we also did during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And for that one, we asked people to write postcards. We asked them to either send us a picture of the postcard if they wanted to take it home and do it later, or to fill out a postcard while they were at the conference. And that was something that was really successful. We just had a bowl with blank postcards, and then we asked people to share that. And some of them stood right at the table and filled out the postcards and put them in the bowl, and some of them took that postcard away, filled it out at a break, and then came back and put it in our bowl. But that was a really good kind of interactive piece that we could do, to be able to not only raise awareness about what we do, like that one had multiple goals, right? It was raising awareness about what we do. It was getting people to think about how they respond to survivors, getting people to practice what a good, safe response to survivors looks like, and then be able to take all of those messages and share them back out with programs for you to be able to share with survivors. So there was like a multi-layered goal there with that one, right? But so those are internal Iowa CASA documents that we developed, that we brought to some outreach or tabling events and not others, depending on the setting and the needs. Okay. All right, we've got Iowa CASA materials as well, right? So these are things that we share, not only they're not Iowa CASA specific. We just made them and we give them out to other folks to share. So a lot of you probably have some of these in your programs. If you don't, send Alex and I a message so that we can get them to you, okay? Again, I know the print is small to read because it's not about what's on these materials. It's really about just seeing visually what they look like. This is just a couple examples. So we've got the Safe Youth Collaborative website. Yes or no, are you guys familiar with that Safe Youth Collaborative website? Can you put that in the chat for me? Is that something you've seen before, yes or no? Several no's, a couple yeses. Okay, Alex, can you put that website in the chat for me, please, if you don't mind? So Safe Youth Collaborative is a website that's specifically designed for people who care about children. So they might be people who are family members or support people for children, or they might be professionals who work with children. And we've got actually 4 different materials at Iowa CASA for you all to use when you're working in community. So there's this one that you see with the kind of mom and child on her shoulders. That one's designed more to appeal toward parents. We have a different branded one that's designed more for professionals, teachers, school folks, things like that. So we've got 2 different brandings that get you to the same website, but to appeal to different audiences. And then we also have 2 bookmarks, one to appeal more to younger kids and one to appeal more to older kids that are related to that Safe Youth Collaborative website. The bookmark that's there is from our legal department. So for those of you who may not know, Iowa CASA generally, most of our work is not in direct services. Most of our work is in training and supporting folks who work with survivors, just like you all who are on this call. But we do have a legal clinic in our office. So we have lawyers that work here that provide free civil legal representation for survivors. And so that's something that we want to get out into the community for folks to know, because it's a really cool benefit that we're the only ones that do. And so being able to share this bookmark, it's just one side and the other side of a bookmark is what you're looking at here, so that folks can get a hold of us about legal information about their rights. So those are some of the materials that we have at Iowa CASA that we can share with you to share with your community if you're interested. So let us know. All right. Now it's time to start playing in some websites. Okay. So this one, give me a yes or no. Anybody heard of RVCC? That stands for Recognize Violence, Change Culture. Is this familiar to you or no? All right, this looks like a new one for lots of you, so let's go play around in it for a minute. Alex is going to put that website here. Oh no, what's going on? I might be impatient. Maybe I've pulled up 7 copies of it. You're working on it, thanks. Skip the verification. We're going to try to go to it together. We'll see how this works. There we go. Okay. So this is a business/community service. So they have a lot of things that are free and they have some things that you have to buy. I know that all of our resources are limited. And so we tend to use the free stuff all of the time. And then we use the paid things, of course, when we have a little pot of money that we can use. And so I'm just going to scroll down, look away if scrolling is something that's bothersome to you. So this is Pride Month, and so their Pride tabling toolkit is the first thing that you'll see on their website, but I'm going to keep scrolling down. So they've got a lot of different things, okay? So these things are free. If it's in that creative outreach materials and it just says download here at the bottom, it's something that's free, all right? So there's lots of different coloring pages that have been really popular when we've been doing work or doing events where there's children. But adults love coloring pages too. So I'll bring them even to an adult only event. This bystander intervention quiz is cool. You can print it in a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, or you can print it in a kind of that half size. So you could get 2 on one piece of paper if we're trying to save a little bit of paper. And it's set up to be styled kind of like a BuzzFeed quiz or, any kind of personality quiz where if you answer mostly A's, you are this kind of interrupter of violence. If you answer mostly B's, you're this kind of interrupter. Answer mostly C's, you're this kind of interrupter. And so you can use that as a takeaway for folks, but you can also use it really as an engagement strategy to help you have conversations, right? And so you can kind of make all of these tools as high or low touch, right? High or low engagement as you want to make it, all right? They also have these chatter boxes. I meant to grab one. I had some folded and I think I maybe didn't, but they're the things that when I was a kid, we called them cootie catchers. Now they call them chatter boxes, but you kind of put your fingers in and you open them and they look like that on the picture. And they've got several ones. There's a pride specific one. There's a bystander intervention one. This one's the healthy relationships. again, been very engaging for both younger folks and for older folks. And you can send them, right? And then they can use them with their friends or use them with other people they're at the conference with. Or you can also keep the one of them for yourself and have people that you're interacting with answer the questions that are on there. If you've got little prizes or little candy, everybody likes that. That's not in everyone's budget, right? But again, high or low kind of engagement strategies. Here's just some more. Again, there's that bystander intervention, a consent and survivor chatterbox, the Pride Edition one, and all these are free downloadables. Okay. They've also got a lot of culturally specific free downloadable materials. So this one here is missing and murdered Indigenous women, right? Resources. There's Black History Month ones, trans community affirmation cards, ones about stalking, and all those are free and downloadable. They do have stickers. Stickers are very popular. Their stickers are ones that you do have to buy. So just to know that. They have tabling toolkits. So there's one for Sam, Denim Day, Pride. Halloween one is my favorite because I love spooky things always. Right? And so we use that one a lot. And you just have to request them. And I'll just show you here when you request, you just fill out a form. You tell them kind of who you are for their funding purposes because these things are free. Like they just want to know who you are and how you're going to use it. Okay? And so you do that. And then they've also got this prevention staff email list. So they'll send you out an email with new resources and material. Okay? So really cool kind of stuff. Let me back out of there. See if you'll let me go back. Nope. Okay. Hang on one second. Sorry, I'm going to move this down. Yep, I know that I'm screen sharing, but I need to move my toolbar. Okay. Back to that resource hub. There's also, we're not going to go into this right now because we're talking about outreach and tabling, but if you wanted prevention tool or presentation tools, there's also graphics that you can use and download for your workshops that you're doing. And then I'm going to scroll one more down. They do domestic violence and sexual violence. Okay, there's also some of these games. They are for purchase, but we have a couple copies of them at Iowa Casa. So if you wanted to, if you were thinking about purchasing it, but you wanted to know how it worked, or if it was actually useful to you when you were tabling, you could borrow one of our copies and use it for a while. But then there's the order kind of thing down there. All right. Any questions or anything else you want to see on this website before I move to another one? And again, you've got the link for that in the chat so that you can go to it on whenever you've got time to do that. Okay. All right, let me get back into my presentation here. I got too many screens. There we go. Okay. All right, so here's the next one. This one's Stop It Now. Anybody familiar with Stop It Now? Yes or no? So I'll make sure we're still awake and alert. Yes or no? Do we know about Stop It Now? Right. Again, looks like a little bit of a mix. Okay, but mostly not familiar. So this is one of my favorites. And this is going to take us right to the tip sheet. Okay, Stop It Now is initially it started as a hotline for people who had problematic sexual behaviors and problematic sexual thoughts to be able to get help and resources, but they've since expanded to all kinds of other things. So they still maintain that hotline, but they've expanded to a lot of other things. So I'm going to scroll down past this curriculum, which is a cool curriculum, but again, not what I'm focused on today. Okay, so these are tip sheets. There's lots and lots of tip sheets. These are longer, okay? So this is not like a cool graphic, okay? So I don't generally tend to bring these to a general community education event or something where I think people are just looking for something kind of quick and pretty and like grabbing resources off the table. This is not what these are for, okay? These ones I use really for a learning conference where people really want in-depth information about the topic, okay? They've got a lot of different options, okay? So there's some of the ones that I use a lot. I'm going to scroll a little bit more. Okay, so some of the ones that I've used are creating a family safety plan, keeping adults and children safe online, the role of grandparents I've used. Uh, they've got a whole bunch. Um, they've got a whole bunch kind of in the warning signs. Signs an adult is at risk to harm a child, or signs that a child is at risk to harm another child are really useful. Behaviors to watch for when adults are with children is a good one. They've got a whole disability section that I use when I'm doing disability specific work. And youth serving organizations, especially like not right now because we're already in summer, but in like, I don't know, starting around March or April, I start sharing this, safety planning for summer, questions parents should ask about school policies, kinds of ones. I saw that some people were saying that they interacted with churches a lot. So there's a prevention in faith-based communities one. There's safety in sports, right? There's just a whole bunch of them. All right. And I'm gonna pull one just because. All right. So you can kind of see what it looks like. So questions parents should ask about school policies is the one I'm gonna pull. And it gives you this that you can look at online, but then they also all have a print it now section. So that's what I use when I'm tabling, is I just click the print it now and then I print. So this is a 3-page document. All right. This is what I mean when I say it's not like a quick, pretty resource that somebody's just going to grab, right? This is an in-depth one for somebody who's got questions, that we're actually trying to provide some real education. Okay. But if I'm doing a back to school night, or if I'm doing a, they do those kind of, I know in Des Moines they do day camp resource fairs, right? Where all of the camps go to say, here's what we can provide for your child over the summer. Here's what our schedule is and our pricing structure and all those things, right? If we can table at those kinds of events, right? I'm going to bring this paper with me. And I'm also going to bring some of the youth serving organization ones so that when I've got some downtime, or if I've got 2 people at my table, one of us can stay to talk to the parents and the other one can be bringing this information around and sharing it with all of the other folks that are all the camp folks that are tabling, to make sure that they know what kinds of policies they have to keep kids safer. Okay. And so when I say it's not pretty, I don't mean it's not well formatted, it's lovely. It's just not like a quick handout. It's something, again, that we're only going to use when folks are in that more deeper learning kind of space. Okay. I'm going to back out of here and back out of there. Okay. But you can see there's just tons and tons, and all of them, right? All of them have that print now option so that you can print them out in a nice, neat, clean handout for folks. Okay. All right. Anything else we want to see on this website? And again, you've got it with you if you need it. I'm going to pop out of here. Here we go. All right. Now, what's okay is also, it's kind of a subdivision of Stop It Now. So similar to like we have Iowa CASA, and then we have that website that is the Safe Youth Collaborative. All right. What's okay is very similar. So they've got Stop It Now, and then What's Okay is their website and helpline that's specifically for young people. All right. I'm not going to go to this website, but you've got it in the link. And the reason that I'm not going to go to this one is that the website itself is fantastic, but it's very much online resources for people who are supporting young people or young people themselves who have concerning sexual thoughts or concerning sexual behaviors. What I want you to all do, and I can't see you, so I'm just going to trust your Scout's honor that you're doing this. What I want you to do is to click on, or is to get your phone and try to click on that QR code that's on this blue flyer image here. And when you've got it clicked on and they're pulling up, I'm going to do it too, so that we're all seeing the same thing at the same time. Just give me a yes when you've got it. It's going to take you to a Google Drive. Oh, Frank's got it. Cool. Good, Frank. Thank you. Who else has got that QR code pulled up? Ainsley, Nelsie, Rachel, good, good, good. All right, so folks are getting it. It's working for folks. Perfect. So what you'll see on this Google Drive, and like if I was really looking at it, I'd have to pull my glasses on top of my head and like pull it big because I'm old and I got the old eyes. All right. But what this is this is the kind of information that I would print out to take to tabling with me. Okay. And again, you'll see really different kinds of materials. So this blue one, right, that's here on the screen in front of you, that's something that I would bring again for the school counselors. I bring it for therapists. I bring it for professionals, right? Because I want, like, what I want at the end of the day is for less sexual violence to happen. And so I know that if we're supporting people who are having concerning sexual thoughts or behaviors, like that means that that will lead to sexual violence. And so I want professionals in my community who work with young people to know that there is a resource for them. Okay. And so that if they hear somebody expressing these thoughts or concerns, they don't just freak out and call DHS and like not be sure what to do, but they've got clean, good resources, right? Clear resources. So this blue one is the one I'm going to give to professionals. All right. There's another one on here that is like the purple one, right? The one that's very purple when you look at it. That's one I would print out if I'm interacting directly with young people, because it's going to say, here's the website that you go to if you're having these thoughts. Okay. Now, I'm always going to bring this with me. I bring this with me every single time I table, but sometimes I put it right on the table, and other times I keep it underneath for just when I need it. And it's going to depend on, again, everything that we talked about with the audience and what you want to get out of it and the vibe of the space, like what I'm going to use it for. But I will tell you that it started for me when I was doing disability specific work. And I was working with parents and caregivers of people with disabilities, young people with disabilities. And I know that the rates of sexual violence in disability communities are astronomically high. They're very, very high. And so what I expected when I started showing up in those spaces was for parents and caregivers and professionals that work with people with disabilities to be coming up to me and asking about victimization, to be saying that they either, were working with a young person who had experienced victimization, or that they were worried about how to keep the person that was in their care safe from victimization. And I do get a lot of that. And I also got a lot more than I expected, of people saying, you know what, I'm concerned about the behaviors of the person that I'm working with, right? I'm concerned because, they have some impulsivity, right? There's some boundary things. Often they're being bullied, and the way that the person with disabilities is being bullied is by other people saying, hey, you should go do this inappropriate sexual behavior because everyone will think it's funny or cool, right? And so then, they're wanting to be liked, all of those things. They're doing the thing and causing real harm and getting in trouble, right? And so there's all of this kind of going on. And I was not prepared for that when I started tabling in those spaces. And so I always now have this with me. Again, sometimes it's right on the table. Sometimes it's just kind of, in my bin of extra things underneath in case I need to pull it out because of a conversation that we're having. But I want to make sure that this gets into as many people's hands as possible. Shiloh, I see that you can't get it open. I'm so sorry that it won't open for you. What I'm going to do is I will, if Alex can figure out how to get a link directly to that QR code, awesome. If you cannot, Alex, don't worry about it. I will figure out how to do it and put it in a follow-up email to people. I am not the most tech person at all, and so I don't know how to toggle things between my phone and the computer very well. But that's a limitation that I'm struggling with. We will make sure that you've got it so that you can access all of those materials, because again, they're the ones you're going to want to use for tabling. Okay. Any questions about this site or things that you specifically want to see other than not being able to get it to open for Shiloh? All right. All right, let's keep it moving. We got more resources. Okay. How about Futures Without Violence? That one's a little bit maybe more familiar to folks. Are we familiar with Futures Without Violence? Yes or no? Futures Without Violence. Yeah, I'm not surprised I'm seeing some more yeses here. This one's a kind of even bigger resource. They do a lot more in the domestic violence world than they do in the sexual violence world. However, they do some sexual violence work, and they do some kind of violence prevention work that cuts across both domestic and sexual violence. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. What you're seeing on the screen, I want to draw your attention to a couple things. So they're very good at having culturally and linguistically specific resources. So you'll see the We're All Connected poster is working with about strengthening Native families specifically. The card that's got some orange on it that's at the top, that's their hanging out or hooking up card, which is an adolescent safety and prevention kind of card. It's a little tri-fold. It opens up and it's designed to fit like right in your back jeans pocket. And it's available in many, many languages. One of them that you'll see here. The Connected Parents and Connected Kids, also another one of those little trifolds. And the Magic of Everyday Gestures, available for sure in English and Spanish. Okay, I'm going to hop to the Futures website so that those of you who are not familiar can see it. But before I do that, I just want to draw your attention. I see Alex did put the link to the Google Drive in the chat. So very much appreciated. Thank you, Alex, for doing that. Appreciate that. Shiloh, let us know if that link works for you. Okay. All right, so here's that Futures Without Violence. This one is not the main website, it's their shop website, because they have a shop, but you'll see that as I say the word shop, everything is $0. Why is that? That's weird, right? So the way that Futures Without Violence works for the things that you purchase is that everything that's downloadable is still free, but you have to buy it through the shop so that they're able to track for their funders how many people are downloading specific resources. Okay. If you want them to send you a hard copy, those things are still free, but you have to pay for shipping. And so I advise you to order as many things as you possibly can, because you're going to pay a $10 flat rate shipping fee no matter how much you order. So order a lot of stuff, whatever they've got that you think you can use, and you're just going to pay that one $10 shipping fee. And so you can search again by specific communities, specific languages, specific topics, right? All of those things. You can kind of see what it is that they've got and be able to get those resources there. And again, we're not going to we're going to move that slider back away from bringing the same information every single time, but we're really going to start to move that back towards who is my audience? What do they need? What's the most important things to share? And get those things on the table. Okay. Questions about the Futures Without Violence website? Okay. Let me pop back into the presentation. All right. Your turn, right? So these are some of my favorite things that I bring when I'm tabling, or places that I go to get things to share. What did I miss? Like, what are some of your favorites that you use? And if you want to unmute, you can feel free to unmute and talk us through them. If you want to share the link in the chat. But I would love to hear from you all. Some of you, this is like 75 to 100% of your job. So what are the things that you are bringing, or places you're going when you're tabling to get those resources? Yeah, so Frank, I know Frank's working on forming a survivor nonprofit. Nelsie's got some swag with the contact information. Felicia's bringing swag too. Yeah. Yep, fidget swag and candy. Yeah, I know that we're all funded really different ways. I will tell you that we at Iowa Casa, it's really difficult for us to get money to do swag or stuff with our name on it or resources at conferences because, frankly, most of the time people don't need to know about Iowa Casa, right? They need to know about all of the work that you all are doing in community. But sometimes we're going because it's a statewide conference that you can't all be expected to be at, right? And so we go to share everybody's information. But what we have found luck with our funders is to say, okay, if this is not just, I'm not just giving this to people, but if I'm using it as incentive for engagement, right? So I say, all right, well, I can give you a sticker as a thank you if you fill out this postcard for survivors that we're collecting, or I can give you, like I can buy nicer swag, right? So like instead of just the, cheaper things that we've been able to squirrel away a little bit of money to buy, we can buy like nice cups or reusable bags or like some of those nicer, like higher value items so that then we can use that to help get engagement, right? That card game that's accessible on the RVCC website, we could say, if you will engage with it, right? If you come play this game with me, like I can give you a bag or I can give you a cup, I can give you something, right? And so sometimes we've been able to leverage the work that we're doing and the interactions that we want to have at the table with the ability to kind of get more stuff that draws people in. Yeah, I see Candace says bring in literature, personal care items. Cecilia's got some agency swag, program brochures, right? Fidget pens. Emily gives out lavender and small monsoon sachets. That's awesome. I love that. All right. Cool. Okay. Let's talk about measuring impact. Okay. So these are just a couple of easy things that you can do to start measuring impact, right? So we can count. And there's a couple easy ways that we can do that, right? So I might pick a resource. So for me, a lot of times it's I'm looking in here. I don't have them accessible. I have those Safe Youth Collaborative bookmarks. And so a lot of times I'll pick that because it's easy to get people to take a bookmark, right? And so I'll say like, here, this is what I want to make sure that if I've got a lot of cool information on the table, but I want to make sure if you get anything from us, it's this, right? This is what I think is most important. And so before I start the tabling, I'll count and say, all right, well, I've got 500 of these bookmarks, right? That's what I brought with me. And then I know I'm going to hand it out to everybody that I interact with. And then before I pack up at the end of the night, I'm going to count the bookmarks, and then I can for sure say I talked to 325 people at this event. Okay. And then that's helpful for me. It's helpful for our funders to know that it's worth it to pay for my time to be at those events. It's worth it so that when we're making decisions about what kinds of events we're going to table at, we can look back at some historical data and say, ooh, we really didn't interact with very many people here at this conference. Maybe it's not worth the fee, right? But this conference, we got a lot of interaction at. And so that's where we're going to prioritize our funding, right? You can also invest in like a people counter. I didn't know what else to call it. That's why it's in quotes. But it's just like one of those super old school. There's digital ones, but I don't trust digital ones as much because like literally, it's just a little thing that you have in your hand. And every time you talk to somebody, you just like click it, right? I think the one that Alex put the link for in the chat is the actual one that's on picture that's on the slide. It's like 3 of them for $6.99 or something, right? So they are not a high expensive item, but they are something that really can just help you start to gather some more data about the tabling work that you do. Okay. All right. Do you have a goal to add to your mailing list? Do you do a newsletter, anything like that, right? If you've got one of those goals and you want to get people's information, all right, I would suggest that you kind of bump up your engagement by doing some sort of raffle, okay? So a lot of us have those, and we've seen them when we've been interacting with other vendors. We've got that paper on the clipboard, and it's just got the sheets, and people will sign their name. And sometimes that works okay. And you might get a couple people to sign their name on that they want more information. But if you say, hey, I've got this book that I'm raffling, right, from our library, and it's got something to do with the work that we do, right? And so I've got a book, and all I need is your name and a number that I can contact you at to tell you if you won, and your email address, right? And then I enter you into this raffle. People will fall all over themselves to give you that information suddenly, right? And so you take that, you literally draw the name before the workshop is over. Somebody is excited and gets their book, and then now you've got all of these new contacts that you can start to share information with. Okay. And we're going to talk about what you do with that information here in a second. Okay? But just really, it doesn't have to be anything big or exciting. People just like stuff, right? And so if maybe you get some higher value swag and you give away a couple of those through a raffle, or maybe you've got some books in a resource library that you thought were going to be really used. I know a lot of us, we bought a ton of books during the pandemic because people weren't able to have so much face-to-face interaction with clients. Their workload was shifting, it looked different. So people were saying they wanted to do more kind of reading as a way of professional development. And so now we've got all these books in our office that just sit and get dusty. So grab a couple, like bring them to an event, raffle them off, and let them work for you by bringing in information that you can use to grow and expand and deepen your program and connections in the community. Okay. Iowans love a corn kernel vote, right? There are lots of candidates on here. This is not, I'm not promoting any party or ideology here, but damn, do we love a corn kernel vote. And so what can you ask people to share their opinion on, right? Get some jars, get some corn kernels, and match that question to what you need and to the vibe of the event, right? If it's super casual and you just want to engage with people, throw some paint chips on the top, right? What color should we paint our new office, right? What age do you let your kids go on social media? And then have some buckets, right? Like, under 10 to 14, 15 to, whatever. Like spread it out however you need to and let them vote. If it's something where you're trying to get some engagement from parents and caregivers. Let people help you decide what you're going to write a grant for or what you're going to invest some resources in, right? What project do you think might be most impactful for my community, right? And put some things in there. Right? If you think it's safe and you want to get a read in a certain population and you think people will do it, do you know anybody who's experienced sexual violence, right? And very intentionally taking that one step removed, right? Not have you experienced sexual violence, but do you know anyone who has? And be able to start to collect that data and have conversations. Can you guys think of any other questions that you could ask, depending on the event? People to just kind of drop a corn kernel and vote for. What might that look like? What could you ask? It's okay if we don't have any thoughts about it right now. I just want to give you a chance to think it through, but more things will occur to you after this webinar, I promise. Right? So just think and ask the rest of your team, right? If you're having a hard time coming up with something, what could you ask? Okay, so get some qualitative data. You could ask some questions like, what might you say to support a survivor? Okay, very similar to what we did with our Postcards for Survivors kind of campaign. What makes you feel safe in your community? When I'm doing an event with young people specifically, I might ask things like, who do you look up to? Right? Or what do you wish you could change about the way the world works? What's a song that makes you feel powerful? And you can do that in a variety of ways. Right? You could do like that, a kind of letter writing campaign and have people write it on something that you're going to collect and not look at right away. You can have it be more public. So you could do just like big sticky note or dry erase board or something. You could do Post-it notes and have people stick the Post-it notes onto something else, right? You could do it in a variety of ways, again, depending on what makes sense for the space, what you think people are going to feel most comfortable with, what fits the event, what you actually have the tools and the resources to be able to collect, right? But again, that's something that after the fact, right, not only is it going to be a more engaging experience for folks who are coming to your table, but it's also something that's going to have real good data for you that will help you to design programming. It will help you to put into your grant reports and your narratives to say, hey, we talked to this many people, right? And this is what we found out, right? These are the real community needs, right? This is a way that they want to be engaged with, right? This is something that we're noticing. You can start to pick up the trends, and you don't need to be an evaluator or a researcher, right? My degree is in English, and I've just done victim services for a really long time, right? But I've been in spaces and been to trainings that get me thinking like, okay, what is it that we need to do to be able to really have some more impact, right? As our funding gets cut and cut and cut, and it becomes harder to say, all right, I'm going to spend $500 or even just $100 for the right to sit at this table and share information. I want to make sure that that information is really actually useful, right? And that it's doing what I need for my community and for my program both. And so this is one of the ways that we can do that. Okay. And kind of as we're rolling up to the end here, right? Like we got to write it down. Okay. So I know that this is hard. Alex will tell you how many times that he's heard me swearing at past Kelly. I'll say it's past Kelly. Like, why did past Kelly leave this such a mess, right? Why did past Kelly like not put away all these things properly? Why did past Kelly not take the time to do this, right? I myself, so I'm not perfect at it. I'm the first one to admit, right? I have envelopes of people's of contact information that we got because we did a raffle, and I was going to put it into a distribution list, and then all hell broke loose when I came back to the office and it didn't happen, right? So I hear it. I know that it's hard. And I know that it is valuable for us to put some more intentionality around the way that we do some tabling events, right? So whatever that qualitative data that I got, right? If I did post-it notes or a big picture or something, right? Like document it, right? Even if all you have time for is to take a picture of it and upload that picture somewhere where other people can see it, that's not just you, right? Whether you use Teams or Slack for work, or whether you've got a share drive or whatever it is that you've got, right? Even if all you can do is kind of take a picture of some stuff and put it somewhere other people can see it, do that, right? Document it. Did you get business cards, right? There are some conferences that they're so busy with people, I never leave my table. And there are other conferences where I have huge amounts of time where maybe people are in breakout sessions, and it's not a conference that it would be appropriate for me to attend. So like maybe we're tabling at a conference specifically for forensic nurses. I'm not a forensic nurse, so maybe I can't go to the conference. And so then I'm twiddling my thumbs while I'm at the table, right? I could bring some work and do that, and sometimes I do, but I also always make sure that I'm taking the space to go talk to all of the other people that are exhibiting or are tabling around me, because I've made some really strong connections. That school counselors conference that I talked about being one of my favorites, the only reason that I knew about that conference was because I was tabling and they were tabling 2 tables down from me, and I went over to talk to them, and like this good relationship kind of came from that, right? So did we get the business card? Did I make new connections? Document that, right? Document not only that these are the people that I reached out to, but take the time to send those follow-up emails. Hey, hi, I'm Kelly. We talked at this conference, right? We talked specifically about me possibly being able to come and provide some training for you, right? Or we talked about you being able to refer young people that you work with to my program. Like, let's have another meeting about that. Or what do we need to do to make that happen, right? If I've got digital copies of some of the materials I send, I might send those along too, right? Because just like we struggle with being able to focus and implement the ideas that we got when we were away, other people are doing that too, right? And they might have the best of intentions to reach out to you and contact you. And then things blew up for them, right? And so I'm just going to provide another avenue for us to deepen that connection. Did anything come out in conversations that you had that need some kind of follow-up? Right? Track it. So did you have a conversation with somebody where you said, "Ooh, there's this really cool thing that I think relates, but I didn't bring it with me. I didn't think I was going to need it. Let me make sure I send it to you afterwards." Right? Note that, document it so that you can actually follow up and do that afterwards. Right? And all of this means more time, so we've got to schedule accordingly. Right? If we're doing this well, if I've been out for 3 days tabling, right? I'm not scheduling anything at least until lunchtime, and depending on how busy that conference was, maybe for the whole day afterwards. And I know that that's hard because things pile up when we're out of the office. But I've got to schedule some time, if not right away when I get back, at least within that same week, to be able to shut down my email, shut down my Teams, and all of my other things that are distracting to me, and be able to do the good follow-up from that conference. So that I'm making the most out of all of the things that we got from there and actually like intentionally making the time to follow up. Okay. All right. I see that Emily and Megan had to leave. Thanks, Emily and Megan. It was good to have you here. Okay. All right. We've still got about 20 minutes left. That was everything that I wanted to make sure was in your heads and in your hands. What other questions do you have? Are there things that you were hoping that I'd cover that I didn't yet, or things that are still unclear? Or are there things that you want to share with the group about this topic that you haven't been able to yet? The floor is yours. And again, feel free to unmute if that's easier than typing. I'm just going to go ahead and because I'm seeing the thank yous coming in, which is very nice. But I really do want to hear from you all about if there's things that it's easy for us to sit in our offices and be like, here's all the things that I think people need to know about this. But a webinar is no good if you don't get what you wanted to or needed to out of it. And so I really want to make sure that we built in the appropriate time for you all to ask those questions that maybe it didn't even occur to me that you might be wondering about, or share things with your colleagues that have been really helpful to you when you're doing tabling.
Okay, excuse me.
Yeah.
So I think maybe I don't know if I missed it. One of the few questions you asked at the beginning was in terms of how measurable, or after your event, how you measure. Can you just go over that again? What have you put in place to make sure that you can be able to measure whatever?
Absolutely. So again, that first thing is the easiest thing probably, which is the counting, right? So being able to report back how many people I interacted with. So that's the first thing that I check with. And so whether you do that through one of those handheld clickers, or if you count your resources before and after so that you know how many people you saw, that's the first measure that I use. It's how many people did I interact with? Because that helps me decide whether it was worthwhile to attend. Then I start to think about, okay, what is it that I'm hoping to accomplish? Is it a conversation that I want to have? Is it data that I want to gather? What do I, other than just sharing information, what else can I do? And so then I'm going to measure that. So if we asked people to vote on something, I'm going to measure that engagement and how many people were willing to engage with us in that way. If I ask them about some of their experiences or things that are important to them, and I ask them to stick Post-it notes on a board or write on a big shared dry erase board, I'm going to gather all of that information and bring it back. And then I'm going to start to look at it between conferences. So if I ask the same question in 3 different spaces, I'm going to look and just see, are people in agreement about this? Like, does everyone seem to be on the same page, or are my answers all over the place, right? What does that mean? What trends am I seeing? So that then I can bring that information back to the team that didn't get the opportunity to go to that event or table with me, so that we can have a conversation about, okay, here's what we gathered from the people that we saw. What are we going to now as an organization? What are we going to do with that? So those are some of the ways that I measure what my impact was.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay, well, you guys have my contact information, and Alex put it in the chat too. As you start to exit the webinar, it will ask you to fill out an evaluation. Please, please, please do that. Because again, we do all of our trainings for free, and this is the way that we're able to continue to do that, is to be able to share the impact of the trainings that, that we're doing, and also to be able to share with our funders what other kinds of trainings and support that you all need, so that we can ask for resources to do that. So I will stick around if people still have questions or want to talk through anything, but otherwise, you've got 15 minutes of your day back. So thank you, and we'll stop the recording and make sure that you all get that after.